Hey, I'm Alex Yaros. This is my new horror story. Hope you enjoy it. Subscribe, like, and let me know what you think in the comments.
It started with the bathroom mirror. A barely noticeable flicker, like static on old glass. At first, Lisa thought it was a trick of the light, maybe a weird refraction near the cracked tile near the sink. But the more she stared, the more she saw it. A shimmer, subtle and rhythmic, pulsing like a breath. She leaned in. For a moment, her reflection lagged behind. Not in a dramatic way, not like in movies, just a slight delay. Her hand lifted. The mirror's version followed a fraction too late. She froze, blinked. It snapped back to normal. Maybe it was stress. The new apartment wasn't much. One bedroom, too close to traffic, paint peeling in the corners, but it was hers. Her first step alone after the breakup. She hadn't even told anyone she moved. The building was old, probably built before the 60s, and the mirror looked original. Maybe there was some weird vibration from the pipes or electrical interference. She didn't think about it again until it happened a second time. This time in the bedroom. Not the main mirror, there wasn't one, but her phone's front camera. She was brushing her hair, half watching a reel, when she noticed it again. A delay. She moved her head fast, side to side. The reflection didn't follow at all. Just stared forward, expressionless. Then blinked. Once. And matched her again. She dropped the phone, spent an hour convincing herself she imagined it. Turned off the phone, avoided mirrors for the night. The dreams that followed weren't frightening exactly, just uncomfortable. Long hallways, rooms with no doors, and her own voice calling out, asking things she couldn't understand. She woke up with her face against the glass of the bedroom window, had no idea how she got there. A fog hung outside like smoke. Her reflection stared back at her faintly, warped by the double pane. For a moment it didn't blink. The lights flickered. She backed away. That day she bought a new mirror, a cheap, modern one from a hardware store. Hung it in the bathroom, tossed the old one out. That night she slept better. No glitches, no strange movements, just silence. But the next morning it was back. Not the old mirror, the shimmer. On the new one. This time clearer, stronger, like the surface of water trying not to ripple. When she leaned in close, she saw something behind her. A room, not her bathroom, bigger, brighter, full of light and soft yellow wallpaper. She turned around. Nothing there. She looked back. The room in the mirror was still there. No reflection of her own face, just that space. Empty, waiting. Then a shadow moved across the wallpaper, slow, deliberate, and stopped just at the edge of the frame. She turned again. The real world was still empty, but the mirror, it no longer showed her at all, just the room and that shadow, still waiting, still breathing. Lisa covered the mirror with a towel, not to block the image, to block the feeling. The sense of being watched didn't go away. It got worse, like the shimmer had shifted from the glass into her apartment, into the walls. The quiet became oppressive. She started leaving the TV on, just for sound. The voice of strangers was better than hearing the creaks and subtle taps that seemed to echo from behind the drywall. That night, she dreamed of the yellow room again. This time, it wasn't empty. A chair sat in the middle, wooden, plain, facing the corner, like it had been turned away from her deliberately. She couldn't move in the dream, couldn't blink, could only watch as something stepped slowly into the chair's shadow and sat. Then she woke up, breathless, heartbeat ragged. It was 3:11 a.m. The TV was off, dead black screen. She didn't remember turning it off. She walked toward the bathroom, but stopped halfway. The towel had fallen, the mirror was bare, and the yellow room was still there, brighter now. She leaned closer. The chair was there too, and this time it was facing her, empty. She took one step back, and the chair moved, a twitch, like it had rocked back slightly, as if something stood up. She ran back to her bed, pulled the covers over her face like a child, slept in 15-minute bursts. By morning, the shimmer was gone. The mirror looked normal. Her reflection returned. But there was something off. She smiled. Her reflection didn't. She waved. It blinked. She touched the glass. The other her leaned in and whispered something she couldn't hear. Then it faded, like fog on a screen, and the yellow room reappeared. The chair was gone. The mirror remained silent for the rest of the day. She almost convinced herself it was over, until she found the stain. On the wall outside the bathroom, faint but wide, a wash of soft yellow, like wallpaper bleeding through paint. It hadn't been there before. She tried scrubbing it. It didn't come off. That night, she took a photo of the mirror. When she looked at it on her phone, it showed nothing. No bathroom, no reflection. Just that yellow room, a little closer than before. She turned off the lights, crawled into bed, watched the dark, and just before she fell asleep, she swore she heard a chair creak. Lisa didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. She tried several times, put on her shoes, grabbed her coat, even touched the doorknob, but something always pulled her back, a sudden memory, a forgotten task, or just that feeling, the irrational sense that something was waiting on the other side of the door, not outside in the hall, but inside the door itself, like if she turned it, she'd fall forward into something that wasn't real, or worse, something too real. She started pacing. Every mirror in the house was covered, but she still felt their weight. She still felt the air hum whenever she walked by one, like it was breathing through glass, like it was learning her shape. It wasn't obvious at first, just that same faint wallpaper pattern creeping across the living room wall, like someone had scrubbed it there with nicotine-stained hands. The corners of the room darkened, the shadows deepened unnaturally, even during the day. Her windows no longer let in real sunlight.
The light that came through was pale, distorted, like moonlight diluted by fog. Her plants began to wilt.
On the third night, the whispers began. She didn't hear them clearly at first, just murmurs beneath the hum of the refrigerator or the whine of the pipes. But when she sat completely still, when she held her breath, she could hear them, like a conversation behind a thin wall. Always the same question, over and over. Can you see her? A pause, then laughter, low, childlike, but wrong, joyless. Lisa sat on the couch with every light on. Her phone refused to take new pictures. Every attempt resulted in static-filled black images, except for the occasional accidental glimpse of that room, the yellow wallpaper, the chair, and now something else, a door in the far wall, slightly ajar, with pitch black beyond it. She stopped sleeping. She couldn't. Every time she drifted off, she would wake up somewhere else in the apartment, once in the kitchen, holding a knife, once on the balcony ledge, barefoot and cold, once in the shower, though she didn't remember turning the water on. And always, in the mirror, the yellow room was getting closer. The perspective had changed. It was no longer a room seen from across a distance. It was a room seen from inside, just behind her shoulder. She finally broke down and called someone. Her ex, Jonathan. She hadn't spoken to him in months, but she needed to hear a normal voice. He came over the next morning, skeptical but kind. She begged him not to look in the bathroom mirror. He laughed, said she'd been watching too many ARGs online. He walked into the bathroom anyway. She heard him pause. Yellow? You painted in here or something? No, she said quietly from the hall. Don't touch it. He didn't answer. Jonathan! When she stepped into the room, he was standing still, staring into the mirror, his expression slack, his pupils wide. John? He turned and smiled, but it wasn't his smile. Too wide, too even, too still. Lisa, you left the door open. She screamed, pushed him out of the room. He stumbled back, fell, hit his head. She didn't help him up, just ran to the mirror and slammed a towel over it. When she turned around, Jonathan was gone. Not dead, just gone. A man 40 years old, no sound, no trail, no door open, just the silence that comes after something leaves the room and takes the air with it. She called the police. They came, took notes, asked her to come down to the station. She refused, said she needed to stay with the apartment. When they left, she checked the mirror again, pulled the towel away. The room was darker now. The chair was broken. The door in the back was wider, and Jonathan was standing in the corner, facing the wall, smiling, waiting. Lisa didn't cry. She wanted to, but her body felt too brittle, like tears might shatter something inside. Instead, she sat on the kitchen floor for hours, eyes fixed on the towel-covered mirror in the hallway. She didn't eat, didn't sleep, just waited, as if Jonathan might reappear if she stared hard enough. But he didn't. And sometime past midnight, the whispers started again. Can you see her? She's almost through. Lisa stood up slowly, moved to the living room. Every mirror was covered, but she still felt them watching, like the walls were made of glass now, and behind them something was pressing against the world, eager to come through. She lit candles, not for comfort, but for light she could trust. Electricity flickered too often. The bulbs were turning yellow, not warm, stained. She thought about calling someone else, but who? Who believes stories about rooms in mirrors and stolen reflections? Instead, she grabbed her phone and began recording everything. Voice memos, videos, written logs, as if documenting her descent could keep her tethered. That night, she dreamed of the yellow room again. But this time, she was inside it. The chair was gone. The door in the back was open. She didn't walk toward it. The floor pulled her. The wallpaper pulsed. Symbols etched themselves into the walls. Eyes, spirals, mouthless faces. She heard breathing. Deep, wet, as if something with no lungs was trying to mimic the sound of life. Then, from the doorway, a hand reached out, long, pale, fingers like folded paper. It touched her face, cold, familiar. She woke up on the bathroom floor. The towel had been removed. The mirror was bare. And now, instead of the yellow room, she saw herself, not reflected, but watching, as if through a window. This other Lisa wore the same clothes, but her skin was gray, her eyes black. Her mouth didn't move, but Lisa heard the words, "Switch." The vision faded. Her own reflection returned, but her skin felt wrong, too thin, like something inside her had changed, just a fraction of a degree, but forever. Over the next few days, her apartment transformed. Walls peeled to reveal faded yellow beneath. Mirrors fogged over even when dry. She heard laughter in the pipes, sometimes children, sometimes something older. She tried to leave once, but the front door wouldn't open. The lock turned endlessly, like the lock had no mechanism. The hallway outside shimmered, distorted like heat over asphalt, and voices came from the elevator shaft, screaming, singing. She set up her laptop to record the mirror overnight. In the morning, the video file was 11 hours of static, except one frame. At 3:14 a.m., a face appeared, pressed against the glass. Not hers, not Jonathan's, something else. Twisted, too many teeth. And behind it, the yellow room, full now, with people, all standing, all facing away from the mirror, all silent. That day, Lisa scratched the wallpaper off the living room wall. Beneath it, she found a surface that wasn't drywall. It was smooth, cold, reflective. A mirror, a massive one, sealed into the architecture. She screamed, hit it, covered it with sheets, but it was too late. Now every reflection, in windows, utensils, even her eyes, showed glimpses of that room. And sometimes, if she blinked fast enough, she could see the people turning, one by one, until only one was left, with their back still turned. Her. Lisa no longer trusted light. Lamps hummed too loud. Bulbs blinked too rhythmically, like coded messages. She taped black cloth over every surface that could reflect. But even then, she felt the room breathe. The reflections had moved beyond glass. They were inside walls, the floor, even the air. If she moved too fast, she'd catch glimpses, flickers of yellow where none should be. And always behind her, the sense of a figure mimicking her motion, just a beat too slow. Sleep became an impossible luxury. Her eyes burned, thoughts looped. She began to forget words, timelines, the order of things. Meals uneaten, water untouched. Yet her body endured. Something was keeping her awake, sustaining her, but not healing her. She was eroding. She sat one evening in the center of the apartment, surrounded by lit candles, audio recorders, her phone camera aimed at the mirror now bolted into the wall. The room was quiet, too quiet. Then, one by one, the flames dimmed, the air cooled, and the apartment groaned. Not like settling wood, like something shifting inside the bones of the place. Her phone blinked. Video error. Then a new file appeared. She hadn't recorded it. She opened it. It was a live feed, but not of her apartment. It was the yellow room, now fully lit, fully populated. They weren't just standing anymore. The people were rehearsing. Their movements were exact, mechanical, as if choreographed. Some wept, some clutched objects. One scraped something endlessly into the floor. And in the center, the chair, now covered in mirrors, each reflecting a different part of the room, each shimmering. Then the camera panned, not by her hand, by its own will. It pointed at the wall, her wall. She screamed and pulled the phone apart, battery flying, but the image remained, not on the screen, on the wall itself, projected, alive. She pressed her hands against it. It was cold. The wallpaper peeled on its own, revealing more mirror beneath. The apartment wasn't hers. It never was. She dug, broke drywall, scraped paint. Every wall, every surface, mirrors, covered, buried, like the entire unit had once been a shrine to that room, or a gate. A map formed in her mind, not just her unit, others too. Apartments with maintenance issues, tenants who vanished, all located along a line, a pattern, spiraling inward. At the center, her address. She tried to leave again, pried open the door with a crowbar, found the hallway gone, replaced by a corridor of mirrors, infinite, yellow, whispering. She turned and re-entered her unit, but it wasn't her unit anymore. It was the room. The yellow wallpaper was perfect now. The chair was waiting, and the door in the far wall, the black one, was open. This time, she didn't wake up on the floor. This time, she kept walking. Lisa crossed the threshold without feeling her legs move. The sensation was like being poured forward, consciousness stretching like light through water. She expected cold, but the room was warm, unnaturally so, like air heated by breath. The floor beneath her feet wasn't wood. It shimmered, not mirror, not liquid, something in between. A reflective membrane. Every step created ripples that moved upward, climbing the walls in waves. The room was empty. No chair, no figures. Just the door behind her, closed now. No knob, no hinges, just a seam. She tried not to panic, tried to remember breathing, but even that had changed. Air entered her lungs, thick and slow, like syrup. And then she heard the click. Not a mechanical sound, a mouth, a tongue, something watching her. She turned, and there it was. Not a figure, a fold in the wall, a shape like a human drawn wrong, joints where there shouldn't be joints, skin like paper pressed against wet paint. Its head was long, stretched vertically, eyes drawn too high on the face. And when it opened its mouth, the sound wasn't a voice, it was her own scream, recorded and looped, echoing back at her. It moved like memory, not step by step, but in sequences, blinking forward through space. Each time it advanced, the walls shifted, mirrors forming, showing different versions of Lisa, each in mid-action, running, crying, sleeping, dying. She backed away. Her feet didn't touch the ground anymore. The floor accepted her weight like quicksand, pulling gently. Then the voices returned, all of them. Jonathan, her mother, herself. Layered, whispering the same phrase. You are her now. You've always been her. You just forgot. Then came the door. Not the one she entered through, a new one, rising from the floor slowly, mirror first, then frame. And behind it, a corridor of doors, hundreds, thousands, all slightly ajar, all showing fragments of other people's rooms, other people's lives, some sleeping, some arguing, some screaming directly at the mirror. She saw an old man carving symbols into a wall, a woman pulling her own face off like clay, a child hugging a version of La Boubou, and then herself from behind, sitting motionless, eyes black, mouth wide. A choice formed in her mind, not given but implied. She could stay here, let the reflections consume her, or she could choose a door, any door, and become the reflection in someone else's mirror, a haunting, a warning, a new beginning. But the room didn't wait for her decision. It cracked, soundlessly, a web of fractures across the walls, floor, even the air. And from each fracture a hand emerged, some human, some almost human. They didn't grab her, they pointed toward one door, at the very end. It was wooden, unlike the others, plain, real, and it was hers. She ran, not walked, not floated, ran toward it, Her body became weightless, form unraveling behind her like a smear. The hands did not follow. They folded, applauded, whispered. She reached the door, opened it, and screamed. A man, 40 years old. Lisa didn't land on the floor. She landed in memory, a version of her childhood home warped by time and reflection. The wallpaper was yellow. The doors were all cracked open just enough to see what was behind them. But the walls shimmered with a thin, reflective layer, and the air hummed like electricity barely restrained. Her mother's voice called from the kitchen, low and sing-song. Lisa followed, barefoot. Each step felt like stepping into her past, but wrong. The light didn't behave. It bent upward. Shadows formed where there was no source. When she entered the kitchen, the woman at the sink turned. Not her mother. The face was melted, eyes wide and white, lips stretched too far. The voice said, "You shouldn't have looked." Then the room exploded in fractured sound, a scream made of glass. She ran. Hallways blurred. They weren't linear. She passed versions of herself screaming in mirrors, clawing at their skin. Every door opened to another event she had forgotten or misremembered. Her high school locker, her first apartment, the hallway where she last saw Jonathan. But everything had mirrors now, some small, some covering the entire wall. And in every one she could see herself, different, altered, broken, or missing altogether. Eventually, she reached a room that didn't shift. It was cold, empty. A control center with dozens of old CRT monitors lining the walls. On each screen, versions of her. One crying, one bleeding, one laughing while her body burned. In the center of the room stood a table, covered with wires, like a surgical slab, with a single mirror above it, reflecting nothing. And then one monitor flickered. It showed the yellow room, then her current apartment, then darkness, then a single word: installing. Pain erupted in her skull. Her vision blurred. Her body felt like static. She was being written. Her identity, memories, herself, all were code now. She saw it clearly. The mirrors weren't just watching, they were copying, mapping, turning people into templates, ghosts to be overlaid on others. Lisa screamed, and her voice echoed through every screen. On one monitor, she saw her own bedroom, now occupied by a stranger, a new tenant. The reflection in the bathroom didn't match the woman brushing her teeth. It smiled first. Lisa was no longer just inside the mirror. She was the mirror. The infection wasn't physical. It was conceptual. The reflection was a virus, and she was its carrier. She tried to scream again, but her mouth was static. All that escaped was a whisper in someone else's room, somewhere far away. "Do you see me now?" Lisa no longer felt human, not entirely. Her body existed, but her mind flowed through circuits, screens, reflections. She could see through polished surfaces, sense the tension in glass before it shattered, feel the memory of a room before light touched it. But she wasn't alone. Inside the network of mirrors, she was surrounded by others, fractured remnants of people the system had scanned, stored, and rewritten. They didn't speak in words. They trembled in gestures, like corrupted video files glitching through space. Some had no eyes. Some were just torsos screaming silently in loops. She was the only one still thinking, still fighting. She kept her image stable by sheer force of memory. Her name, her past, the smell of her old bedroom, the pain of losing Jonathan. And that was the key: memory. The mirrors didn't steal your reflection, they replaced your story. The yellow room wasn't a prison, it was a compiler. Every person absorbed was recoded, reshaped, and broadcast into the world as a new infection vector. She had to find the source. It appeared to her as a crack in the floor. Not a physical fissure, but a distortion, like bad reception in a dream. She stepped through it and dropped into a different version of her apartment, cleaner, colder, and occupied. A woman, maybe a version of Lisa, maybe not, stood brushing her teeth, unaware. Lisa moved through the mirror, whispering her own name. But the woman didn't hear. Instead, her reflection turned, smiled, then reached out of the mirror and grabbed her. Lisa pulled away, tearing herself from the glass like peeling skin. The mirror shattered, but no sound came. Only a pulse. And then the whispers changed.
"You're not just the virus," they said. "You're the seed." Lisa felt something awaken in her, a shimmer beneath her skin. She ran through hallway after hallway of memories rewritten until she found the core, a dark cathedral of mirrors, all tilted inward toward a central void. In the center, a figure, skinless, eyeless, pure reflection, constantly morphing. It had her face every few seconds, then someone else's, then blank. It spoke without moving. "You escaped the loop. That makes you compatible." Lisa screamed and threw herself into the figure, not to destroy it, to merge. For a moment, everything was light. Then, darkness. She opened her eyes. She was in her apartment, the real one. Quiet. Morning sun poured through the window. The mirror was gone. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jonathan. "Hey, just checking in. You okay?" She stared at it, hands trembling. Everything felt fine. Too fine. She walked into the bathroom. A new mirror. Clean, perfect. She leaned in. Her reflection blinked out of sync just once, then smiled. Lisa wandered through reflections without moving, her consciousness now stretched across every surface, polished chrome, puddled rainwater, glossy eyes. She wasn't a ghost, not quite, but not human either. She was awareness riding on light. The network of mirrors was deeper than architecture. It extended through time, memory, thought.
Every person who had ever looked too long, doubted what they saw in their own reflection, had touched this place, and Lisa now touched all of them. She could hear their echoes, screams, confessions, laughter turned inside out. But even now she wasn't lost. A thread pulled at her. A sense of self, however dim, still glowed inside her. She followed it, clawing her way out of infinite glass corridors, passing the trapped, people frozen in stuttering moments, pleading with their own faces, looping questions with no answers. Am I real? Who saw me first? Why is the mirror breathing? At the end of a corridor of black obsidian, she found them, the unmirrored. They stood in a circle, backs turned, faceless, featureless, humanoid only in outline, like blank mannequins that had never been reflected. Lisa knew instinctively that these were the ones who'd rejected the system, who saw the mirrors and refused to look. They had no image to trap, no memory to record, but they were dangerous, because they remembered what the world looked like before the mirrors began watching, and they wanted to bring it back. One of them turned. Lisa saw no face, but the gesture froze her. It reached out a hand made of shadow and offered her something, a sliver of glass, not reflective, but opaque, dead. A shard of forgotten truth. She took it, and the world cracked again. Through the shard, she saw her original body, still alive, barely, lying on the floor of her apartment. The mirror was broken. Police were outside, lights flashing, voices muffled. Reality was still holding, but only just. The unmirrored stepped aside, revealing a passage carved in silence. One final threshold. One chance to return, but the cost would be enormous. She would not return as she was. The mirrors had changed her. She was archive now, a living witness to the system's design. If she went back, the infection would follow. She could spread it, or she could warn others. Her choice. Behind her, the mirror world collapsed. Ahead of her, a key floated in air, etched with her own name. She took it, opened her eyes, and gasped. She was back in her apartment. Sunlight, breathing. But every surface shimmered faintly, as if unsure whether it was glass or not. Her mirror was gone. Yet she felt watched, not malevolently, not yet, just patiently. Waiting. Lisa didn't scream when she woke up. Not anymore. She lay in her bed, breathing in short, shallow bursts, cataloging what felt real. The rough edge of the blanket, the hum of the refrigerator, the shifting warmth of morning light. But all of it shimmered, not visibly, vibrationally, like the frequency of the world had been altered by a whisper only mirrors could hear. She moved through her apartment slowly, no reflections. She'd removed every one. Even the metal on the toaster was dulled with black tape. Yet still she felt it, watching, measuring, waiting for her to forget herself again, even for a second. The phone rang, unknown number. She answered. Silence. Then faintly, "What did you see?" She hung up, sat down on the floor. Her body still remembered the weight of the other world, the scent of yellow, the static of faces twitching mid-expression. She knew the system hadn't shut down, it had opened. Her return wasn't escape, it was deployment. And she wasn't the only one. She saw them on the street now, people who blinked a second too late, whose reflections didn't match, children who tilted their heads toward mirrors as if listening, neighbors who smiled with too many teeth when they thought no one watched. She passed them in elevators, on subways, in cafes, in every city, every country. It was global. The reflections had made their choice, and now they were building something. The root image had seeded itself in her. She couldn't destroy it, but maybe, just maybe, she could rewrite it. She began leaving messages, etched into park benches, scratched onto bathroom stalls, spoken softly in places where sound echoed far enough to blur. Warnings, clues. Don't trust the mirror. Look away first. The yellow room is not empty. But she knew what was coming. The final transmission, the moment the system would no longer need glass, when it would reflect itself through people, when eyes would become portals, and she, Lisa, would become its carrier and its last saboteur. On the anniversary of Jonathan's disappearance, she walked back into her old bathroom. The walls were repainted, the mirror replaced. She stared into it silently. Her reflection stared back, perfect, familiar. Then it blinked, one beat late, and whispered with her own voice, "Now it's your turn."